Oneness. Oneness with life. Oneness. Insufficiency. Don't affirm the current state of lack by seeking something in the future. By saying, I am going to get wealth through meditation, you affirm unconsciously that there's something wrong with you right in this moment. I always make sure that my thinking and speech includes oneness and positivity, a focus on what I want instead of what I don't want. Remember that you are the self, nothing can make me into myself or take away something of myself. There is nothing to be gained and nothing can be lost. I am the self that nothing can be added upon to complete, or can anything ever diminish it, and therefore nothing must be shunned. Unity consciousness is all there is. There are no glimpses of unity being sent into this world of duality, but unity exists all along and is all pervading. Unity cannot be known intellectually, only experienced. Experience comes from being in union. Abide in the formless as I meditate and engage in thinking pointers that point to unity. Labeling a state as unity is not unity. The act of labeling brings us back to the world of duality. Because with that labeling, we separate the experience from the experiencer in order to judge it. They are one. Our consciousness merges with the experience. That is what it means to experience something. This might be called the samadhi state, where consciousness merges with what is held in consciousness without the separating barrier of labels or judgments. It is not some grand state in the future. It can only be found in the now and in the portal is surrender, uncompromisingly and definitely. In surrendering once and for all, there is no desire to surrender anymore. Surrender is the portal between resistance and non-resistance to life. The unity can be experienced as grace all the time and every moment, as long as we don't identify with a mental concept of how this moment should be like. In being open and in the state of no mind that is one with life, we are open and grace can be perceived by our consciousness. In grace, we perceive the totality that is loving and supporting of life. In being one with life, we perceive life as life, loving life, and experience all that to be one. Any spiritual practice totally surrendered to leads ultimately to unity consciousness. This intensity of the realization can vary and get stronger over time, but the portal is always the present moment. In longing for a more intense and more lasting realization, we won't get it, because the longing brings us out of the present moment, that is the portal, to the very thing that we were longing for. Rather, we establish faith and the deep knowing that we are close and it is there all along, and surrender deeply into this moment, and there is nothing at this moment to exist in this moment. Then we will be distracted or pulled out of being one with the moment, and we redirect our attention back to presence. As this happens more and more often, the intensity gets stronger, but the portal is always the now and not a future moment to be attained. Things to be contemplated on the second. What does it mean that we are all together and connected? I understand that we are all consciousness and that this consciousness is life. Therefore, in every one of us is a manifestation of the wholeness of life. Who and what is the one that I am? It is the witness consciousness in front of which all forms arise. I understand that the consciousness is the witness and cannot be witnessed. It could be witnessed. If it could be witnessed, it wouldn't be defined by boundaries and would, on the other hand, not be the eternal self, and on the other hand, just witnessed itself by the consciousness that witnesses. So the witness cannot be witnessed, and is therefore the basis to all of life. It is life itself. It is the same force that is the intelligence in our cells that makes the life process work and give each cell the knowledge of the process in the other cells of the body. In abiding in the unmanifested formless consciousness, I understand that I am life manifesting through this form, and that there is no need for a separate entity of the ego to define myself. It is love. Love is true creation. It is the act of merging, of seeing, no separation, of seeing myself in the other and the other in myself. Therefore, I can also see myself in a stone, as the same intelligence moves the energy that my and stones from consist of, and the stone in myself as I have minerals and elements, C, in my body as well. Love is unconditional. That means formless beyond conditions. Unconditional love accepts equally every form, no matter the characteristics. In abiding in the consciousness that treats every form equally indifferent as no true attachment or avoidance, I am love. L20. In the light of love, all negativity is transformed. In the light of love, everything is seen and heard. When negativity is met by love, it dissolves because it does not find a form to grasp onto. So our contribution to the world can be to transform negativity into love on the interpersonal level, and this is done by transforming negativity within ourselves by love. This is embracing it with consciousness until it dissolves. It is the totality. The consciousness is all there is. It is nothing and therefore everything. Nothing in the sense that it is formless, and everything in the sense that it brings everything into existence. Without consciousness, nothing would exist. Without the consciousness within ourselves, nothing in the external world would be represented internally through the senses, and thus would not exist to us. And if there was no consciousness at all, nothing could arise from it. The totality, the formless, manifests an energy being in motion that forms particles which move a certain speed and therefore bring the illusion of a separate form entity into being. A rock, for example. So without consciousness, nothing could exist, because it needs consciousness to make the energy collapse into existence, as quantum physics tells us. It is God. It is the creative force behind every creation. Without God being the consciousness, nothing in the world, without God being the consciousness, nothing in the world of form could come into existence. Of course, it has already been there as a potential, as quantum physics tells us, and will be there when the physical form has vanished, as the energy continues to exist. It is nothing and everything at the same time. It is all and nothing. It is the I am. It is just being that is practicing I amness. That is being one with life. I merge with the totality, with God, with consciousness, with life, and with love. The practice is that of no self, because every thought referring to a self brings me out of existence as life itself and into egoic identification. So it is the practice without the intention to practice, because the intention to practice implies a need to change and to get somewhere. This is an egoic influence on my doing. This doing is to come spontaneously and without being judged and labeled as anything, and without attachment, so that it is just the natural way that I am. In this, the creative forces are unleashed as I function as a channel for the Tao. Function as a channel for the Tao, the life energy or God, as I clear my consciousness of obstruction of the flow of this energy by an egoic entity. How do I get there? It takes deep trust and faith. The faith comes about by knowing that everything I need is already inside of me, so there's nothing to be gained and nothing that can be lost. So the fear of not getting there fades away because there is nothing to attain. It is also not difficult to attain. It only takes this moment to realize yourself, so you can be in this moment fully enlightened, and it might not be abiding, because in the next moment you might or might not fall out of the state. We need to abolish the doing, the striving, the wanting to get somewhere. We need to abolish the notion that this is something to be added on to or to be attained. It is rather something that we experience as to be true. The experience is that of being the I am in every moment as possible. I choose a loving response to all people that I can. I choose to bring consciousness to every action to take, and to every step, and to every thought. I choose to align myself with life and to learn to listen to my inner voice. Being the I am also means the avoidance of being the self. Remember that you are the self, nothing. Bam. Into myself, take something of myself. There is nothing to be gained and nothing that can be lost. I am the self that nothing can be added upon to complete, or can anything ever diminish it, and therefore nothing must be shunned. Great. Cool. Let's easy. It's easy. Got it. Non-separation. All that I experience is not separate from me, but a continuation of my being. Because without the consciousness essence of mine, these things wouldn't have come into being, so they are me in the sense that they arise in my consciousness. What does it mean that the consciousness, the experienced, and the experience are the same? We know from quantum physics that only when there is consciousness, things collapse into reality. So it needs the consciousness for the things to be witnessed, to be manifested into reality. All aspects of reality are a manifestation of the yogic consciousness and therefore an undivided aspect of that consciousness. Was heißt es, dass wir alle eins sind? What does it mean that we are all one? What does it mean that we are all one? Every form to have an object, as we experience separation, there is one and another. If we are angry, there must be someone to be angry at. If we are angry at ourselves, we see separation in us. Wenn wir mentale Formationen haben, dann denken wir in Separation. Wir haben ein Subjekt und ein Objekt. Was wir jedoch jenseits der Formationen gelangen, sehen wir, dass wir lediglich einen Hintergrund gibt von Thich Nhat Hanh. Separation is seen as the root cause of pain. Whenever we are not identified with the eternal self, we are identified with either the side of life's polarity, that seeming duality. So then we strive to avoid the opposite side and cling to the preferred side, or vice versa. That gives rise to the fear of loss, which creates the suffering. Separation shows up in all aspects of life. Relationship, when we don't see ourselves as connected, then the ego starts to build up. When we try to protect our sense of selves in conversations. When we are identified with the form becomes the false sense of being, the subject, the sense that we are the form, and then the object is sought. When we think about Eckhart Tolle, I identified with the thought and then I hold him as an object. Whereas when I identify with the observer, we need to be cautious that we don't see the arising thought as an object, as this would be separation. What does it mean that being an observer and the object of observation are the same, are one, are not separate but the same thing? Being the same doesn't mean indistinguishability. It means the same doesn't mean that there is no difference. Being the same means arising from the same essence. So we as humans can all be special in the way we look, we behave, in the uniqueness of our psyche, yet we are all manifestations of life. Our bodies and actions are all animated by the same life force, which is God and which is what we truly are. So my consciousness, which is me in the literal sense, and my thoughts are the same in the sense that for thought to arise, it needs the space of consciousness. If there was no consciousness, there would be no thought. Literally, I couldn't notice the thought if it went unnoticed. But there are unconscious thoughts that go unnoticed but still have an effect on the body and our psyche. And there seem to be events in the objective world that go unnoticed by me but still take place. This is true, and I did the mistake of identifying with my body. It goes noticed by me in the sense that the consciousness is in everybody, so if the event is noticed through the sense organs of another body, it is still noticed by me because the consciousness animating the body is me. We as humans can only be here with consciousness. If there was no life force animating our bodies, we could not notice each other. The same life force that animates all of our bodies, the light of consciousness behind it, also gives rise to all thought form. Thought can be perceived as separate in the field of consciousness, the same as we humans can be perceived as separate. This separation can only be seen from the perspective of an individual manifestation. That is, when identified with a thought form, we see the separation. We see the separation as this thought is clearly distinguishable from other thoughts. As human bodies can be clearly distinguished and seen to be separate, but only if we identify with a separate form. So all thoughts arise in the field of consciousness, that is, there could not be a thought without consciousness. This means the essence of all thought is consciousness. There also could not be a human without consciousness. That means that the essence of existence is consciousness. If there was no consciousness to observe and nothing and notice things, there wouldn't be anything. And notice things, there wouldn't be anything. The notion of an objective world comes about only when we think. Even when humans are not noticed, being observed by consciousness, they still exist objectively. But this is only when we think in separation. We think, I cannot see them, but they are still there. But who is that I? In the context of this exclamation, it is a separate entity. We think somebody else could still see them, but this is thought of as separation. If the I in us and that we can't see, it doesn't exist. Therefore, consciousness is seeing things from a more macro or meta perspective. There is nothing more meta than consciousness itself. It is the underlying life force. It is the essence of all. It is nothing, and without it, nothing could be. To raise consciousness in everyday life means to switch to a meta perspective and become the observer of the action, thought, or something else. So the eternal self is the field of awareness. It is the basis from which the world arises, as the external world exists only when our consciousness witnesses it. The eternal self's nature is not identification with the form, but with life itself. It witnesses only itself's beingness. As soon as I conceptualize the consciousness, it is not anymore. It becomes another form. The deeper level of that is the witness that witnesses the form. It can't go any deeper than the witness. As the witness is everything, it is God. Non-attachment is the full knowledge of one's true nature. As the seer, without clinging to objects of experience. I am not my life history, my degree, my self-image, or objects described by others. I am not what others see in my or describe me to be. I am not the form, I am the everlasting witness. What does it mean that the reality is a dream? Every dream experience seems very real, as a dream is the definition of consciousness. In lucid dreams, there is a little bit of consciousness there to control the dream. As we wake up, we encounter the dream as being not the reality. The same holds true for our perception of the world. The dream of permanence. On one hand, there is nothing stable, so we think of stability and permanence, but every form is unstable. Then everything is nothing in its essence. The dream of variety. Every matter consists of energy and movement, interspersed with 99.9% space. This is a great word, interspersed. We are going to save this into our vocabulary, like jewelry, the words that heal, Yahoo, Yahweh, Yah, Yahoo, me, Yahoo, me, Yahoo, me, Yahweh, Yahoo, Yahweh. Easy. So the form that we see are not separate but connected through energy exchange and are all of the same essence. This is energy and space. Dream of separation. We are all one in the essence. We are all life moving through this form. So we are one in essence. Every of our forms is one in content. That is matter. That is energy in motion. So we are one in content. And for this form to manifest, it needs the formless. So essence and content are the one. With this, there is no separation possible, only in a lower state of consciousness, that is, in a dreamlike state. Dreams of the definite. Nothing is ultimately definite. The solid things that we see are not that solid. They are solid to our dreamlike experience, but are not solid in essence, as there is lots of space. Nor are they solid in existence because it needs consciousness to bring about these solid structures. Dream of limitation. As we are the vastness and essence, there is nothing that could not be manifested through either our form or with the help of other forms.